Hey guys, Splatoon is just over 1 year old now, and it's fair to say it's been a tremendous success for Nintendo. In fact, it's probably Nintendo's most successful IP in years. I mean, the guys in Japan are absolutely going crazy over it. The amount of merchandise available there is mental. There's a manga, a soundtrack, and a whole lot more. And I think it's pretty safe to assume that Nintendo are going to work on a sequel. And if not, well, they're just foolish, aren't they? So in today's Just Ideas video, I'm going to be talking you through 10 of my ideas for Splatoon 2, or Splatoon as I like to call it. They're not necessarily in order, but I've tried to save some of my favourite or some of the best ideas for the end of the video. As per usual, this video isn't anything visually stunning, just some ideas to share with you, and as always, let me know some of your ideas. Number 10. More costumes, weapons and stages. Let's start things off with a no-brainer. More weapons and clothing. I must admit I'm really surprised Nintendo didn't utilise Nintendo's other Amiibo more, especially considering the game itself has spawned 8 different figures. What I mean is, why couldn't we scan in Mario and get Mario-based gear such as a flood-inspired weapon? Or maybe Bowser Jr. to get Shadow Mario's paintbrush? Or how about Samus to get like a arm cannon-inspired weapon? Just thinking of some of those ideas, I can assure you you'll get excited. I'm not one to lock away content though, so just more gear and weapons in general would be great, and no doubt it's going to happen. It would also be good to see more of these things unlockable via challenges. At the moment, anyone can purchase any of the items at any time really, after certain levels, but wouldn't it be ace if you actually had to complete certain tasks and achievements in order for these things to become available? In terms of stages, there just needs to be more in my opinion. I think there's a fairly good amount. There wasn't to begin with, but there is now. And on the subject of stages as well, I'd also like to point out, let us choose the stage that we battle in. I think everyone's been saying that. Probably in a similar style to Mario Kart 8. For number 9, I've gone for an arcade. One of the things I absolutely loved about Splatoon is the loading time games. They're really simple and do take your mind off the sometimes long loading times. I think Nintendo should add on to these, and not only that, create a little arcade in the hub world where you could go and play them all. It could be here that you unlock more of those games by getting high scores, and it'd be a nice little side mode for when you're not in the mood for throwing around paint. In terms of what the games are, I'd love to see Splatoon take on some classic NES games, so like Kid Icarus or Excite Bike or Balloon Fight, but with a Splatoon feel to it. I think that'd be really cool. In 8th place, I've gone for a canvas mode. This is just a little idea I had for the weapon testing area. What if the main area of it was actually a big white canvas? So you could indeed just mindlessly test out your weapons like you have done in the past, but you could then print out your canvas and share it online. This idea stemmed from obviously the use of ink in the game, but also because I know the fact that a lot of people would get incredibly creative with this. Just look at Miiverse. I know that most people will try and succeed with this in creating works of art with various weapons. I don't think it would be a game-changing mode, but a little extra fun if nothing else. Number 7. Better communication options. As time's gone by, I sort of understand why voice chat wasn't enabled in Splatoon, even though some may argue, including myself, that it was purely because the Wii U couldn't hack it. But perhaps it was for the best. So I'm not saying necessarily introduce voice chat, but I do think it should be an option, in particular when playing with friends. But that's not to say there couldn't be more options in terms of communication. What if they introduced an emoji style system, similar to the Triforce Heroes? I think that would look really good with the Splatoon characters. Admittedly they are really simple, but they can add a bit of fun. Or what about a pen icon you could click on the gamepad, or whatever the NX has? And then you could tap on the screen where you want your teammates to go, or not to go in some scenarios. So I'll reiterate, I'm not saying that we have to go down the voice chat route, but there could be other options. Have you guys got any ideas? Number 6, Octolings and more? Right, who's really genuinely surprised that the Octolings didn't become available to play as? After all the hacks and numerous rumours, it seemed almost guaranteed that this would happen. And whilst I guess it still could, I'm pretty sure they're kind of winding down on the whole Splatoon thing now. Nevertheless, it's an easy win for the next game. And I may or and I may or may not emphasise on their inclusion on my next point. And what if Splatoon 2 introduced a new species? I'm no marine biologist, but I'm pretty sure there's something out there. What about a jellyfish? I don't know, have you guys got any ideas? For number 5, I've gone for a bigger story mode. I'm not going to lie, I absolutely loved Splatoon's solo mode. It was incredibly fun, each level tried out something new, and none of them really felt repetitive, and some of them had reasonable challenge too. Straight up, I think it was fantastic. So it's no surprise that I want more. I think in general the setup was good. A level-based story makes sense, so I just think it needs to be bigger and longer. So here's one way I thought they could do it. So remember in the last video when I said you should be able to play as Octolings? Well, what if they split the story mode into 2 modes? Think Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. So you could play through the game as Inklings and then a similar, albeit tougher mode with the Octolings. This would allow newcomers to get into the game's controls and mechanics with the Inklings and seasoned players to pick up the Octoling story. I think it would also be a great way to explore the species rivalry. I think it would also be great to give the missions more replayability too. I know that's in fact what the Amiibos did, but more challenges built into the game would be good too. As without Amiibo, I could see why some thought the story was a little shallow. That said, I did bloody love it. But what I'd love most of all is the ability to play the campaign mode in co-op, or even 4-player online if need be. I know that kinda negates the idea of a solo mode, but it's always a nice option to have, and it'd be great to play cooperatively with a friend. Perhaps co-op mode could be a separate mode to solo campaign. I don't know. What I do know is though that both modes need to exist in some way. At number 4 I've gone for a bigger hub world. Splatoon is a very stylish game. It has its very own unique, fresh feel, and the game is oozing with character. So I think this should be built upon even more, and a good starting place would be the hub world. Perhaps instead of a small plaza, you could actually have a small little city area to explore. Yeah, sure this means we'd need more shops and more buildings, but that's no bad thing. And what if your Inkling had an apartment? Kind of think of the game's very first loading screen. You could customize this, and perhaps this would mean you could have more than one Inkling, or Octoling. And then you could kind of level them up individually, so you'd have almost accounts, maybe for separate people in your household or your friends. And maybe even assign them as your allies for different modes. Or what if you could save certain Inklings to your Amiibo so you could take them around people's houses? That gives me an idea. Number 3, more one-player modes. Touching on my previous point about potentially having more than one Inkling or account, what if there was a more tactical mode in which you would take control of your whole team of Inklings and you would have to position them around the map and see how the battle unfolds? Kind of like a turn-based strategy game. Or, if not that, how about just a general battle with other Inklings and all your other Inklings are computer controlled, giving you an easier way to level up your team as a whole without having to go online? Or what about a quick fire challenge mode where you have to ink certain areas or use no ink at all in mini locations? I think there's a lot of potential to develop the single player experience, and I have no doubt that Nintendo will do that. For number 2 I've gone for more online competitions. Splatoon Splatfests were great, but they had so much more potential. On a few occasions, the competition was between branded things, such as a Transformers inspired one, and I think a SpongeBob inspired one, and so on. And I think that just touched on the potential here. So here, there are 2 main ideas for me on how they can make this element of the game even bigger. Firstly, make them more rewarding, encouraging people to get involved. I only ever entered, I think, one Splatfest, but I always knew what was going down. I didn't have much of an incentive to get the game on just to vote and compete. However, if you offered prizes to the winning team, then perhaps I would have been more inclined to do so. I'm thinking gear related to the winning team, or massive discounts in the store products for one day. Or what about a point-based system, where for each time you win a Splatfest, you earn a special Splatfest point, which can ultimately be traded in for exclusive items such as rare gear, weapons, arcade games, or furniture for your aforementioned apartments. Secondly, make them bigger. Build up the hype. Advertise it everywhere. Nintendo did a fairly good job with this on social media, but it could have been done even better. What if each time a Splatfest was about to kick off, a video was uploaded to their YouTube account detailing the perks of each team and questioning whose side are you on? And what goes hand in hand with this? More branded competitions. I don't necessarily mean outside of Nintendo, as much as I'd love to see, Coke versus Pepsi or Family Guy versus The Simpsons. It could easily be Mario versus Luigi, Melee versus Smash Bros 4. Heck, what if the game was so successful they used it to determine the next Smash Bros character? That would be absolutely crazy, and people would definitely get involved then. Or what if they used it to decide the inevitable Splatoon representative for Smash? The possibilities are pretty massive, and they really need to tap into this. What I would say though is Splatoon is only the first game in what I hope would be a very long, prosperous series, so I'm sure that Nintendo have some of these ideas under their belt already. And finally, I've gone for bigger battles. If Splatoon 2 does nothing else, it just needs to make the battles bigger, much bigger. Not necessarily as the default mode, but I'm thinking of this in two ways. Firstly, bigger teams. What if we were able to pit teams of 6 against 6, or 8, or 10, 15, 20? What's the limit? How would that affect things tactically? I couldn't really tell you, but I'd love to find out. Secondly, who said it always has to be 2 teams? Why not make it a freeway battle? How about 4? Maybe even more. These 2 ideas are perhaps the most simple on this list, but arguably will make the biggest difference of any of the previously mentioned ideas. And this idea alone gets me incredibly excited. Taking it back to my previous entry about more competitions with Splatfest. Imagine a freeway Splatfest between the current Pokemon's generation starters, or a 4-way Splatfest between green, red, blue and purple Link. And heck, who wouldn't want to join a team of 9 other people in an epic 10v10 all-out battle? Obviously, I appreciate in terms of balancing, this is a minefield. But hey, that's for the experts. I'm just throwing out ideas here. And that's it, folks. Just 10 ideas for Splatoon 2. And to be honest, I've only scratched the surface of most of these ideas. And there's a number of things I haven't even mentioned. But I thoroughly enjoyed coming up with these ideas and sharing them with you. I hope you've enjoyed them, and I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. Thank you for watching, everyone, and stay fresh!